Imagine walking into a room not with the loudest voice, but with a presence so powerful that people listen not because you demand it, but because your words carry weight, the kind of impact that doesn't require shouting or over explaining, but simply speaking with intent. You speak less, yet your message resonates more. What if you could communicate more effectively by saying less? In a world that's constantly bombarded with noise, the real power lies not in how much you say, but in how well you say it. Less is often more, and with the right approach, even silence can speak volumes. The ancient Stoics, masters of self discipline and thought, understood this deeply. They believed that silence and precision in speech were not signs of weakness, but of strength. Figures like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus weren't known for speaking at length, but for choosing their words wisely and using them purposefully. The art of saying less to say more is a lesson in self control, influence, and clarity. This guide will explore how applying Stoic principles to your communication can transform the way you interact and elevate your presence. The power of saying less is not about avoiding communication, but about speaking intentionally and with purpose. We will look at how this principle, rooted in Stoic wisdom, can transform your interactions and elevate your presence, allowing you to leave a lasting impact without saying a word more than necessary. Saying less is not about being mute, it's about speaking with purpose. It's the art of choosing your words carefully, knowing that each one should carry weight and intention. This concept is often misunderstood as silence or restraint for its own sake, but in reality, it's about clarity and influence. Saying less means that when you do speak, every word matters, and people listen because they recognize that your words are worth hearing. Consider the most influential people in history, whether in business, politics, or social movements. Many of these individuals didn't speak the most, but they spoke the best. Think of figures like Steve Jobs, Winston Churchill, or Mahatma Gandhi. Their impact wasn't measured by the volume of their speech, but by the precision of their words. They understood that the power of communication lies not in frequency, but in the quality of what is said. Jobs' product launches were famously succinct, but packed with meaning. Churchill's speeches rallied nations with a few carefully chosen words, and Gandhi's quiet demeanor often spoke louder than his public addresses. The philosophy behind saying less can be traced back to the teachings of the Stoics. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius believed that wisdom in speech reflected wisdom in life. For them, words were not to be wasted, but should be a reflection of deep thought, careful consideration, and an understanding of what truly matters. The Stoics understood that speech, much like action, should be intentional and free from unnecessary embellishment. They lived by the principle that less is often more, especially in the context of communication. One of the core Stoic ideas is to speak as if your words carry the weight of the universe. This notion suggests that words should not be frivolous or spoken in haste, but chosen with the same care as any important decision. In Stoic thought, a wise person speaks not to fill silence, but to illuminate, to clarify, and to contribute to the greater good. Every word is an opportunity to convey wisdom, not just to sound intelligent, but to provoke thought, to inspire, or to bring about change. What if the greatest leaders in history didn't shout their way to success, but silently shaped the world through careful, precise words? Imagine that the influence they wielded wasn't the result of incessant talking or attempting to dominate a conversation, but rather from speaking in such a way that people listened more closely, leaned in to understand, and were moved by the impact of what was said. This form of communication requires restraint, confidence, and an understanding that silence in itself can be just as powerful as speech. The reason why less is more in communication is that over explaining and unnecessary words often dilute impact. When we speak too much, we risk losing the attention of our audience or, worse, diminishing the potency of our message. Think about how many times you've heard someone go on, repeating the same point over and over, only to feel the message is lost in the noise. On the flip side, the minimalist approach of great leaders like Jobs, Churchill, and Gandhi shows us how restraint in speech can demand more attention and respect. Their words were chosen for impact, not volume, and this strategy made their messages unforgettable. In fact, the art of saying less can often hold people's attention more effectively. When you speak less, you force your audience to listen more carefully, to pay closer attention to what's being said. It's the difference between shouting and whispering. A whisper, when carefully timed and delivered, can often be far more powerful than a shout. This principle extends not just to public figures, but to personal interactions as well. Think about the times when a few well chosen words in a conversation have made all the difference. Often, it's not the quantity of words that matters, but the quality and timing. By embracing the art of saying less, you learn the power of restraint, choosing to speak only when necessary and speaking in a way that commands attention, respect, and thought. This approach not only enhances your presence, but also elevates your ability to influence and lead, much like the Stoics and great leaders throughout history who knew that true power comes from speaking less, but speaking with purpose. Silence isn't empty, it's a tool, a powerful instrument that shifts dynamics and creates space for thought. In a world where everyone is constantly speaking, silence stands out like a beacon. It has the ability to command attention, allow for reflection, and influence those around you in ways words alone cannot. When used intentionally, silence can be more powerful than any spoken word. In fact, it can sometimes speak louder than the most eloquent speech. Think about the effect a leader has when they pause before responding to a question or a challenge. That brief moment of silence before an answer is given immediately commands respect. It conveys confidence, thoughtfulness, and the ability to control a situation. When a leader speaks too quickly, it can sometimes appear as though they're rushing to fill the silence or avoid discomfort. But when they pause, they make it clear that they are considering the question carefully, weighing the best response. This gives them an air of authority, and others instinctively respect their careful deliberation. In a world that never stops talking, those who know when to be silent become the most heard. Silence in itself becomes a statement, an act that signals self control, wisdom, and an ability to remain centered in moments of tension or uncertainty. We all know someone who talks constantly, dominating every conversation, but it's the person who speaks thoughtfully and knows when to hold their tongue who tends to have the most influence. There's power in restraint. People listen more carefully to those who don't fill the air with unnecessary chatter. From a scientific perspective, silence plays an important role in how our brains process conversations and interactions. Research has shown that our brains treat silence as an essential part of communication. When someone pauses in the middle of a conversation, the brain processes this silence as a signal to pay closer attention. Silence creates anticipation and allows the listener to digest what's been said, ensuring that the message isn't lost in a flood of words. Studies also show that silence can improve the retention of information and lead to deeper contemplation. This is why strategic pauses in conversation are so powerful. They create a space where the listener can reflect and absorb what's been shared, making the words that follow that much more impactful. Mastering silence involves learning the art of the purposeful pause. It's not about being quiet for the sake of it, but about knowing when to withhold your words to create impact. When you pause, you give the other person room to think, and you invite them to fill that space with their own thoughts or responses. In negotiations, for instance, a well timed pause after presenting an offer can put pressure on the other party to fill the silence, often leading them to make concessions or reveal more than they initially intended. Imagine you're in a high stakes conversation, maybe a business negotiation, a delicate discussion with a colleague, or even an important personal conversation. You remain quiet after a challenging question or statement. The other person might shift uncomfortably, unsure of how to proceed, and you've just shifted the power dynamic in your favor. The longer you maintain the silence, the more the other person may feel the need to fill it, often with words that reveal their true feelings, intentions, or vulnerabilities. In this way, silence can be a subtle but powerful tool for gaining insight and influencing outcomes. The Stoics understood the power of silence and its connection to wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and other Stoic philosophers taught that silence is not weakness, it is the art of knowing when to speak. This principle holds that silence is not the absence of communication, but a deliberate choice to withhold unnecessary words. It reflects self discipline and an understanding of the right moment to engage in conversation. A Stoic doesn't speak out of habit, but only when their words can contribute meaningfully to the situation. The benefits of silence are profound, especially in areas like negotiation, leadership, and relationships. In negotiation, silence can give you an advantage, allowing you to listen more carefully to the other party and assess their responses. By remaining silent after making an offer or statement, you put the pressure on the other person to respond, often leading them to reveal more than they intended. Leaders who master silence gain respect and influence because they understand the weight their words carry. They don't feel the need to fill every conversation with their thoughts. Instead, they speak only when it truly matters, making their words more powerful and their leadership more effective. Real world examples of figures who use silence to their advantage abound. CEOs like Steve Jobs were known for their quiet demeanor in meetings, often using silence to create suspense and force others to think more deeply before responding. Historical figures like Winston Churchill also understood the power of silence. His speeches were marked by strategic pauses that allowed his words to resonate deeply with his audience. In both business and politics, silence can become an asset, allowing the person who controls it to exert influence in subtle yet powerful ways. In relationships, silence can be equally transformative. By not rushing to fill every silence in conversation, you allow space for the other person to express themselves more fully. Silence in personal relationships can also signal respect for the other person's thoughts and feelings, showing that you are truly listening and considering what they have to say. In conclusion, silence is far from being an absence of communication. It is a potent tool that, when used with purpose, can command attention, shape dynamics, and influence outcomes. Whether in negotiations, leadership, or personal relationships, mastering silence can give you a powerful edge, allowing your words to have more weight, your presence to have more influence, and your actions to speak louder than words ever could. Pauses, though often overlooked, have a hidden strength in communication. When used effectively, pauses can make your words land with more force, adding emphasis, weight, and meaning. Think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches. His oratory brilliance didn't solely come from the words he spoke, but from how he used pauses to create rhythm and build anticipation. Each pause was deliberate, giving his words time to resonate with the audience. When he paused, the silence was as powerful as the words that followed. This technique not only made his speeches memorable, but also gave each phrase the space it needed to sink in deeply. The timing of pauses is crucial. A well timed pause can shift the course of a conversation by creating space for reflection or intensifying the impact of a statement. For instance, during a negotiation or important conversation, if you make a bold statement and then pause, you create an opening for the other person to react. This pause allows them time to process what was said, often leading to a more thoughtful or even vulnerable response. It's a psychological technique that manipulates the dynamics of a conversation, giving you control over the flow of dialogue. It can also create a sense of tension that the other party feels compelled to fill, often resulting in them revealing more than they might have intended. From a psychological perspective, pauses have a significant impact on how listeners engage with information. When someone speaks and allows for a moment of silence, it gives the listener time to process and reflect. In our fast paced world, we are rarely given the luxury of silence, but when we are, it triggers a deeper level of engagement. It gives us the opportunity to not only hear, but to understand and internalize what's being said. A pause also adds emotional weight to a conversation. It can signal sincerity, importance, or even challenge, compelling the listener to pay closer attention and consider the message more carefully. Mastering the pause involves knowing when and how to use it effectively. In conversations, a pause can serve different purposes. It can be used to let tension settle after a difficult topic or to amplify a point you've just made. In the former case, a pause provides a moment of relief and allows everyone to take a breath before continuing. In the latter case, holding a pause just before making a significant point can heighten its impact. Imagine you're discussing an important idea or proposal. By pausing before revealing your key insight or argument, you create an air of suspense that makes the audience or the person you're speaking with lean in, eager to hear what's coming next. The pause doesn't just build anticipation, It signals that what you say next is worth listening to. Think about the effect of a strategic pause in a one on one conversation or public address. Imagine you are in a tense business meeting and you drop a significant piece of information. Rather than immediately following up with another statement, you let the words hang in the air for a moment. The pause gives others time to process the weight of what was just said, and in doing so, it forces them to focus on your words more intently. The longer they take to process, the more likely they are to internalize your message, and the more likely you are to have a lasting impact. Precision in speech is a powerful tool. It's about using fewer words but making every word count. When you speak with precision, your message becomes clear, focused, and impactful. The most influential speakers throughout history didn't rely on the number of words they used, but on the quality and clarity of the words they chose. Speaking with precision allows you to communicate your message in the most efficient and effective way, making sure every word serves a purpose. What if a single sentence could change everything? In the hands of a skilled speaker, a carefully crafted line can have a lasting impact, shifting perspectives, inspiring action, or leaving an unforgettable impression. For example, think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s iconic I Have a Dream speech. It wasn't the length of the speech, but the precision of those words that resonated with millions. Similarly, the difference between a great leader's speech and a mediocre one often lies in the choice of words, not their number. A few well chosen, powerful words can convey deep meaning, while over explaining only dilutes the message. Over explaining can severely weaken your message. When you provide excessive detail or go off on tangents, you risk losing the core of your point and losing the attention of your audience. When you over explain, you run the risk of introducing confusion or diminishing the power of your message. Think about how easy it is to tune out someone who rambles or repeats the same point over and over. On the other hand, when a speaker keeps their message clear and concise, the impact is often stronger and more memorable. The fewer words you use, the more weight each one carries. The Stoics were masters of precision in speech. Epictetus and Seneca, two of the most influential Stoic philosophers, advocated for speech that was straightforward, deliberate, and clear. Epictetus often emphasized that unnecessary chatter or excessive explanation detracts from the true meaning of one's message. In his teachings, he urged individuals to avoid speaking for the sake of speaking and instead to choose their words with intention and purpose. Similarly, Seneca believed that brevity in speech was a sign of wisdom. The Stoics understood that clarity and simplicity in communication were not only signs of intelligence, but also a reflection of inner discipline and self control. So, how can you speak with more precision in your daily life? The key is to focus on what truly matters and trim away the unnecessary. Start by considering the core message you want to convey and eliminate any words that do not contribute to that message. This means resisting the urge to fill the silence with words that don't add value or repeating yourself unnecessarily. Instead, aim for clarity, focusing on the essence of what you want to communicate. One effective way to practice precision in speech is through a simple exercise. Take a complex idea or a lengthy explanation and try to reduce it to one clear, powerful statement. For example, if you're explaining the importance of teamwork, instead of saying, when people work together, they can achieve more than they can alone, and this is why it's so important in every aspect of life, both in the workplace and in personal relationships. Try something like, teamwork amplifies individual strengths and leads to greater success. And that single sentence, the essence of the message is clear, concise, and much more powerful. Another way to enhance precision is to slow down. In a fast paced world, there is often a pressure to speak quickly and fill every moment of silence. But by taking your time and speaking deliberately, you can ensure that each word has purpose. This allows you to think through your words before speaking, which not only helps you communicate more clearly, but also shows others that you value quality over quantity. In conclusion, speaking with precision is a vital skill that enhances your ability to communicate effectively. By eliminating unnecessary words and focusing on the core message, you can make your speech more impactful, memorable, and influential. The Stoic approach to speech teaches us that brevity and clarity are not weaknesses, but strengths. By practicing precision in your speech, you can ensure that every word counts and that your message resonates deeply with your audience. To speak with impact, you must first listen deeply. The foundation of powerful speech isn't just in what you say, but in what you hear. By truly understanding the person or situation before you respond, your words can be far more relevant, measured, and compelling. Imagine a world where you spoke only after truly understanding the person you were talking to. Your words would not only be more thoughtful and precise, but they would also resonate more deeply, influencing others in a more meaningful way. Listening is not just about hearing the words, it's about comprehending the emotions, intentions, and nuances behind them. This is the first step in speaking with true impact. The Stoics, ancient philosophers known for their focus on wisdom and self discipline, understood the importance of listening. They believed that wisdom didn't come from speaking endlessly, but from listening deeply and reflecting before speaking. Epictetus, one of the most prominent Stoics, famously said, "We have two ears and one mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." The Stoics recognized that listening attentively gave them the clarity needed to speak more effectively. By understanding the full context and the thoughts of others, they were able to respond in ways that were thoughtful, impactful, and aligned with their values. In Stoic philosophy, listening is a form of self discipline. It requires you to set aside your own biases and preconceptions, allowing you to truly hear what someone is saying rather than rushing to form a response or judgment. This type of active listening doesn't mean merely waiting for your turn to talk. It means fully engaging with the speaker and seeking to understand their point of view. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reflected on the importance of self control in conversations, urging himself to be quick to listen but slow to speak. This advice helped the Stoics avoid reacting impulsively, instead, cultivating the ability to speak with wisdom and intention. Active listening is an invaluable tool for gaining deeper insights and responding more effectively in conversations. By paying close attention to the speaker, you open yourself up to new perspectives and ideas that might have otherwise been overlooked. Active listening involves more than just hearing the words. It's about noticing the tone, body language, and emotions behind the message. When you listen with this level of attentiveness, you're better able to understand the speaker's intentions, concerns, and underlying motivations. This deeper understanding allows you to craft a response that is both relevant and impactful. When you listen intently, you also give yourself the time and space to think carefully about your response. Instead of reacting hastily or speaking impulsively, you can choose your words with precision, ensuring that your response is clear, focused, and meaningful. Listening also allows you to identify the most important points in a conversation so you can respond with greater clarity and precision. In this way, listening shapes your speech, making it more thoughtful and more powerful. Consider the way respected negotiators approach discussions. The best negotiators don't rush to assert their position. They first listen carefully to the other party. By listening, they gather information about the other party's needs, desires, and potential weaknesses. This information allows them to craft a response that addresses the concerns of the other party while also advancing their own interests. The most successful negotiators are those who understand the importance of listening before speaking, as it gives them the tools to navigate the conversation strategically and with greater impact. In everyday interactions, whether in business, personal relationships, or public speaking, the role of listening is equally crucial. By listening actively, you can tailor your message to the needs of your audience, ensuring that your words resonate with them. Listening also builds rapport and trust, as people appreciate when they feel heard and understood. When people know that you are genuinely engaged with what they are saying, they are more likely to listen to what you have to say in return. This creates a cycle of mutual respect and influence that can elevate the quality of your conversations and interactions. In conclusion, listening is not only a prerequisite for speaking with impact, it is the cornerstone of powerful communication. By embracing the Stoic philosophy of listening more than speaking, you can gain deeper insights, craft more precise and relevant responses, and ultimately become a more influential communicator. Listening deeply allows you to understand others better, respond with clarity and precision, and speak with purpose. In a world filled with noise, those who master the art of listening are the ones whose words have the greatest power and influence. Words hold immense power. They shape perceptions, stir emotions, and can even alter the course of someone's life. Whether spoken in a moment of joy, sorrow, or conflict, Words have the ability to influence how others see the world, themselves, and their relationships. Every time we speak, we wield the potential to inspire, provoke, heal, or hurt. Imagine if every word you spoke carried the potential to change someone's life forever. What would you say? How would you choose your words more carefully? The weight of words is far greater than many realize, and being mindful of that weight is essential to speaking with purpose and impact. The key to making every word count lies in using fewer words, but making them meaningful. In today's world of constant chatter, it's easy to get caught up in the flow of words without considering their impact. We often find ourselves over explaining or filling silences with unnecessary details. However, true power in speech comes from cutting through the noise and focusing on what really matters. Whether you're addressing a room full of people or speaking to an individual, the fewer words you use, the more weight each one carries. This doesn't mean you should be terse or overly concise, but it does mean being deliberate about your choice of words and their delivery. A well chosen word at the right moment can carry more weight than a whole paragraph of empty words. The Stoics, who prized wisdom and self discipline, understood the importance of mindful speech. One of their central principles was the idea that words should not be used recklessly, for once spoken, they cannot be taken back. As Epictetus said, be mindful of your words, for once they leave your mouth, they cannot be taken back. This reminder carries deep wisdom. Words, once uttered, cannot be erased. They live on in the minds of those who hear them and sometimes in the consequences they bring. This is why Stoic philosophers emphasize the importance of reflection before speaking. By being deliberate and thoughtful with our words, we not only avoid rash comments, but ensure that what we say has lasting value. One of the most powerful ways to make every word count is to reduce the fluff in your speech, those unnecessary fillers that dilute your message. Instead of peppering your sentences with vague qualifiers like kind of, sort of, or maybe, focus on speaking with conviction. Every time you speak, ask yourself if what you are about to say truly adds value to the conversation. If it doesn't, let it go. When you speak with purpose and clarity, your words take on greater significance and others will listen with more attention. Whether you're delivering an important message, giving feedback, or expressing your thoughts, cutting through the excess allows your words to be more impactful. To help practice this, consider a simple exercise. Think about a situation where you've over-explained or gone on too long in a conversation. Reflect on how you might have communicated more effectively. Could you have been more concise? What would have happened if you had simply stated your main point and paused, allowing others to process and respond? This kind of reflection can help you understand how reducing unnecessary words and speaking with more intention can enhance your effectiveness as a communicator. Consider, for example, a leader who must address their team after a difficult setback. Rather than over explaining the situation or offering excessive reassurances, a leader who chooses their words carefully can provide clarity, instill confidence, and inspire action in just a few sentences. A statement like, "We will learn from this and come back stronger," might carry more weight than a lengthy speech filled with explanations and apologies. The brevity and conviction behind the words create a sense of resolve and direction rather than confusion or hesitation. In personal relationships, too, the weight of words plays a crucial role. When you speak to someone you care about, your words can have a lasting impact on how they feel about themselves, your relationship, and their own life. A single phrase of encouragement or affirmation can change the course of someone's day or even their life. Being mindful of the weight of your words allows you to choose them wisely and speak in ways that uplift, encourage, and support those around you. In conclusion, understanding the weight of every word you speak is essential to becoming a more impactful communicator. By speaking with purpose and precision, you ensure that your words have the power to inspire, motivate, and influence. The Stoic principle of mindful speech reminds us that once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back, which is why it's crucial to be deliberate and thoughtful in how we communicate. By reducing fluff, focusing on what truly matters, and speaking with conviction, we can make every word count and leave a lasting impression on the world around us. Presence in communication is more than just what you say, it's how you embody the message you're delivering. It's the energy, composure, and confidence that radiate from you when you speak, making people listen, not because you demand attention, but because your presence commands it. Imagine someone who speaks with such conviction and calm confidence that you're drawn in, not because they're louder or more forceful, but because their presence speaks louder than their words. That's the power of presence. The Stoics understood the importance of presence in leadership and communication. For them, true influence and authority came from inner composure and emotional control, not from outward displays of force or persuasion. The Stoic philosophers, such as Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, valued self discipline and the ability to remain grounded even in difficult situations. They knew that a calm, composed presence allowed them to communicate with clarity and purpose, earning respect and admiration without raising their voices or resorting to aggression. One of the most compelling examples of presence in communication can be found in the way great leaders project authority through body language and silence. Think of leaders like Winston Churchill or Nelson Mandela. They didn't need to dominate every conversation with words. Instead, they often spoke deliberately, using pauses and carefully chosen body language to amplify their message. Their physical presence conveyed authority and conviction. Mandela, for instance, would often pause before responding, allowing his words to carry weight and giving others the space to reflect on what he said. This stillness in speech enhanced his presence, making every word seem more significant and deliberate. The Stoics believed that this inner composure came from within. True leadership, they argued, doesn't require loud speeches or dramatic gestures. It comes from a sense of self control and authenticity. When you speak from a place of inner calm, others are naturally drawn to listen and respect you. Your presence becomes magnetic and your words take on more power. So, how can you project presence in your own communication? The first step is to cultivate inner calm and self confidence. If you're emotionally grounded and self assured, that will naturally come through in your words and actions. This doesn't mean you need to be perfect or have all the answers. It means that you're able to communicate with clarity and intention without getting swept away by emotions or external distractions. Another practical tip for projecting presence is to be mindful of your body language. Stand tall, make eye contact, and use open, confident gestures. These nonverbal cues convey authority and self assurance. Your posture and demeanor can communicate far more than your words, often influencing how others perceive your message. Lastly, practice the art of silence. Pausing before speaking or after delivering a point can enhance your presence as it gives your words time to sink in and shows others that you are confident enough to allow for reflection. Silence doesn't indicate uncertainty, it signals that you have something important to say and you are willing to give others the space to truly absorb it. In conclusion, presence in speech is about more than just the words you say. It's about how you carry yourself and how you convey your message through your energy, body language, and inner calm. The Stoics taught that true influence and leadership come from emotional composure and self discipline. And by embodying these principles, you can project a powerful presence in any conversation. With the right combination of calm confidence, intentional body language, and strategic pauses, you can speak with an authority that commands respect and attention without ever raising your voice. In a world that thrives on constant communication, the urge to fill every moment with words is powerful. However, constantly speaking can diminish the impact of what you say. When you speak too much, your words lose their weight and become less meaningful. Resisting the urge to fill silence with unnecessary chatter is essential for maintaining control in conversations. Think of the person who takes a moment to pause before responding. That pause, that slight silence, often gives them more control in the conversation than the person who rushes to speak. By sitting in that silence, you allow space for reflection, giving your words more significance and creating a sense of calm authority. The Stoics practiced restraint in their speech, understanding that silence was not only powerful but often necessary. Philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of self restraint, advising against impulsive reactions and thoughtless responses. For the Stoics, speaking was an art that required thoughtfulness and consideration rather than a reflex to fill gaps in a conversation. They knew that the more we speak without consideration, the less impact our words have. Restraint wasn't about being silent out of fear or avoidance. It was a conscious choice to wait for the right moment and respond with intention. By embracing restraint, you can increase the value of your words and strengthen your influence. When you resist the urge to speak immediately, you create a space for better decision making. A well placed pause gives you time to gather your thoughts, reflect on the situation, and decide how best to respond. This measured approach not only makes you more effective in conversations, but also increases the respect others have for you. People notice when you are deliberate in your speech. They perceive you as thoughtful, composed, and wise. In addition to this, the power of silence is often underestimated. In negotiations, leadership, or personal relationships, being comfortable with silence can be an advantage. When you pause before speaking, others often feel the need to fill that silence with their own words, which can reveal important information or expose vulnerabilities. Silence can be a tool to assert dominance in a subtle way. It demonstrates that you are in control of your emotions and reactions, and it forces others to reflect more deeply on their own words. To develop the habit of restraint in your own life, it's important to practice self awareness. Begin by noticing moments when you feel the impulse to speak immediately or feel awkward silences. Ask yourself why you feel the need to speak. Are you trying to avoid discomfort, or are you genuinely contributing something valuable to the conversation? Once you become aware of these impulses, you can start to choose to remain silent or offer a more considered response. One practical exercise is to practice saying less during meetings or conversations. If you're in a group discussion, instead of jumping in with your thoughts at the first opportunity, wait for a natural pause. Give yourself a few extra seconds to reflect before speaking. This pause not only helps you organize your thoughts, but also makes your contribution more impactful. If you feel the need to over explain or elaborate excessively, resist that urge. Stick to the core of your message and make each word count. Another way to develop restraint is by intentionally creating moments of silence. The next time you're in a conversation, try to embrace silence rather than rush to fill it. Allow the other person to speak more and notice how it impacts the conversation. You'll likely find that giving others space to express themselves leads to deeper insights and a more meaningful exchange. In doing so, you'll also gain a greater sense of control, as you won't be reacting impulsively but responding with purpose. In conclusion, resisting the urge to fill silence is a powerful skill in communication. It allows you to speak with greater authority, clarity, and intention. By practicing restraint and embracing moments of quiet reflection, you increase the impact of your words and gain more control in conversations. The Stoic practice of self restraint shows us that silence is not weakness. It is a tool for greater influence and more thoughtful decision making. Whether in negotiations, leadership, or everyday conversations, learning to sit with silence can strengthen your communication and make your words more powerful. In the digital age, where social media is overflowing with posts, comments, and responses, speaking less can actually create a greater impact. Imagine this. What if your social media presence could be stronger by posting less? The constant barrage of content online means that every new post or comment becomes just another piece of noise in a sea of endless information. As a result, the value of what you share can get lost. But when you practice restraint and post less frequently, your words and ideas stand out more, capturing attention in a world where everything is vying for it. The problem with over-engagement online is that it often leads to oversaturation. The more you post, comment, and reply, the less each individual piece of content seems to matter. Just like in face to face conversations where too many words dilute your message, excessive digital communication can weaken your impact. People begin to tune out, scrolling past your post without giving them the proper attention they deserve. Instead of contributing to the conversation, you're just adding to the noise. This is where digital silence comes in. Taking a step back and posting less allows you to be more thoughtful and intentional with your online presence. By resisting the urge to constantly post, you ensure that when you do share something, it has more weight and significance. A well crafted, rare post will command more attention than a flood of mediocre updates. Just as in real life communication, digital silence creates space for your message to breathe and be appreciated. You're no longer simply another voice in a crowded room. You become someone whose words are worth listening to. The Stoics often emphasize the importance of reflection before speaking, and this advice is just as relevant in the digital world. Rather than rushing to respond to every comment or post, take time to reflect before engaging. Is your response valuable? Does it add something meaningful to the conversation? This practice of digital restraint allows you to engage with purpose and consideration, making your online presence stronger and more impactful. In conclusion, less is often more when it comes to digital communication. By embracing digital silence, you can elevate the value of your words and increase their impact. The Stoic approach of reflecting before speaking can guide your online interactions, helping you stand out in a world full of noise.